Hi, I'm Steve, and I'm going to give you a quick lesson on using a light meter in the television studio. The light meter has a lot of functions and features for doing photography or shooting film, but for television purposes and in general in the studio we're going to ignore all of those features, and really we're just going to measure how much light we've got falling on the areas where our subjects are going to be. So we're measuring light in foot candles, and this is a chair where one of our guests is going to be at this table. If I was to use the light meter here, I'd want to position the meter where the subject's face is going to be. If I hold down the button, I get a measurement in foot candles of how much light I've got right there. And so if I take a look at this now, when I release, the measurement will stay. And I've got, let's say, about 120 foot candles of light. One thing to know about our video cameras, these cameras in the studio require about 80 foot candles of light as a minimum to make a good exposure for someone. So knowing that, we'd want to give our subjects at least 80 foot candles, and that's a pretty typical number for video cameras in this day and age. A couple other things to be aware of. Light falls off as it comes from our lighting instruments to the people that we're illuminating. Well, the word I guess is logarithmic. In other words, if I'm half as close to the light, it would be much more than twice as much light. So that means that I need to be very careful where I'm positioning the light. If I have it a foot closer to the light, it's not going to be accurate. It's going to read way too hot. So I want to put it right where my person's face is going to be. And again, I'm going to measure that and then let go, take a look at it. And I'm close to the 160 mark. I'll call that about 140 foot candles. What's more important than exactly what number that is matching the amount of light between more than one spot where I'm going to have a subject. So if I go over to my other chair here, the idea here is to do even illumination so that both people on the set, even though they're not here yet, are going to have the same amount of light. That way they'll be even in my wide shot, and if I have to pan a camera from one to the other, I won't have to adjust the iris on that camera. It'll be the same amount of light. So I can position the light meter here again where the person's face is going to be, hold it down, and I can find out right now that I don't have quite enough light on this position. So I'm going to need to adjust the light on this chair to get the same amount that I've got on the other one. And that's one of the great advantages of using a light meter. I could go into the studio and light positions, which I might mark with tape, or there might be chairs. It could be for any number of people. Maybe it's a group of singers, and I can measure the light at each location where there's going to be a person and try to achieve even lighting where each of those people are going to be, take my time doing that lighting before they need to arrive. There's a couple other things to know about the light meter that can save you from a little bit of trouble. This meter right now has a domed collector on it, and this type of light meter will often come with both a flat collector and a dome collector. Now the dome collector is fine, and it gives you an overall reading, but as you might imagine, it's collecting light from more than one angle. So if I have light hitting this light meter from above as well as in front, I may get a false reading. So what I'll do often is shade the top of that light meter with my hand. That way I'm only reading the amount of light that's coming from the front, that's going to hit the face of my subject. Now the light that's coming in from behind as a backlight for the subject, I want to make sure that that's not being added to the other light and giving me a false reading that I have more light than I actually have hitting the face. Now what I might do then is turn it around to measure the amount of light that's hitting the back of the subject's head and get a sense of that. That gets us into the concept of a ratio. I was taught something called three-point lighting, which is an old concept that goes back to motion picture and television. And three-point lighting gives you a key light, a fill light, and a backlight. But in terms of a ratio, if I've got a key light of 100-foot candles, fill light of 80, my backlight is probably going to be something like 40 or 60-foot candles, and I would probably start there. Well, that's our look at the light meter. You may not have used one before, but don't be afraid to try it. We're really just measuring how much light, and it can be a great convenience to you. Have a good production.